And welcome to A Morning with the Lord. Good morning, lords and ladies, and welcome to the first episode of A Morning with the Lord. I'm your Lord, Daniel Duffield. It's nice to see you all. I'm not obviously, I'm an Australian. I live in New South Wales, a little town called Duffield. You might know it from the song Tenterfield Saddler by Peter Allen. So, yeah, that's who I am. And what I plan to do with this podcast is basically just look at the top news reports of each day, give a short overview. It's a crazy time at the moment. We're in the middle of a coronavirus. I hope it's not the middle. Hopefully it's ending soon. I've had my first shot of my vaccine. Most people here in New South Wales, we're getting pretty close to everyone having double shots. And here in New South Wales, I think it's different, like in other countries and that. But Australia and New South Wales, you're not legally obliged to have the shot. However, if you don't have the shot, you lose the ability to go in any shops or really do anything. You need vaccine passports here to enter shops, except for maybe Coles. Like, you're allowed to go into the supermarket, but other than that, you can't go anywhere. And I think they're saying, like, we have Centrelink here, which is like money support for people without jobs type thing. You know, you get a small stipend every fortnight, and yeah, for people like that, I think they're talking about actually cutting payments off, even like parents, single parents and that sort of thing. Like, they're going to get reduced pays. Like, they might lose their pay, still get to pay for the kids. It's some weird thing. I don't know exactly everything about it, but we might look into it. It's probably going to become an important topic. So yeah, um, all that's going on. There's trouble with China at the moment because they're planning on invading and taking a country. I believe it's Taiwan. We're probably going to come across that and look that up. So, that's happening in the world at the moment, which is pretty terrifying. But me personally, I think we've already lost, like, our fight. Like, if you ask me, there's like, we've been not allies, but we've been close trading partners with China for many years. We've done a lot to accommodate them. Australia has sold China one of our biggest ports in Darwin, which is the top of the country, the capital of the Northern Territory. Basically, one of the biggest trading ports, I think, even in the Southern Hemisphere, and we sold that to China, so they can use it. And there's trouble with that at the moment because that's very near one of our military bases. There's a military port there as well, like just close to it. So, we don't want China really to have that at the moment, but we've sold it to them. So, like, there was a clause in the contract, I heard, that we do get it back if ever an emergency arises, or there's troubles. There is something in the contracts there where we might not be totally screwed, but they're already there. Like, WA has a massive airport that is only used by China. So I've heard, mainly for their mine workers and that sort of thing, that they bring over. But, all that's another thing too. We're in a point at a time at the moment where the world is, like, we have robotics for nearly everything. Like, physical labour's becoming a much less necessary thing. Like, we have self-driving cars. I have heard, I'm not 100% sure, but I have heard that, like, some of the Asian countries already have self-driving trucks and that sort of thing. So, we're in this point where we're transitioning over to a very new system of living, and it's a troubling time. And then we've got coronavirus on top of it, which is like it's helping the change in a way, because so many people are losing their businesses, um, and like everything that's going to come in to replace all those lost businesses is going to be most likely more prepared for the new changes that are going to be in the system. Uh, you know, this is all yep, this is all happening. So I'm gonna switch over to the internet here. Hopefully you can all still see me. I can't see my camera feed. This will get updated, but anyway, let's have a look here. Australian news headlines. See what we got. Oh, the date also is the 17th of the 10th, 2021. It's a Sunday here in this beautiful country. We got ABC coming up first. So I want to also bring up a point before we go into everything. Australia has it's working very hard to change the laws around the internet. Like we've brought, and I'm sure we already have. Like it was about Christmas last year, I think, that the laws came in. But instead of counting Google and Facebook as, what is it? Instead of counting Google and Facebook as platforms, we want to count Google and Facebook as publishers, or I don't know the correct nomenclature that they're using, but basically what it means is that if Facebook or Google show anything that the government don't consider to be legal, or what they want shown, or what's the word for it, appropriate for Australian viewing, then they will be fined for it and have to remove it, which means there's a lot stricter rules on everything that goes up on the internet. And I found, like, I honestly think this happened before the laws even came through. Like, shit was getting changed before the actual laws. They knew that it was going to happen, so these things started changing beforehand. And I notice, because I love looking up like all sorts of history, and especially, like, I enjoy the conspiracy theories just because it's an amusing narrative. It's fun to think that the world, has some sort of structure to it, but I don't think that's quite the case. But it is an amusing thought. So I don't mind looking at them, but you can't find them. Especially anything revolving around Nazis in World War II, which I find extremely interesting. I used to watch a lot of the stuff about especially like the occultish stuff behind, the SS and everything, and some of the, their secret societies, like the Thule Society, I'm pretty sure it's called. And I think that, I'm not sure, but there was a female one that was all female, all the wives, like a cultish group. I'm not sure if that was the Thule or not, or like they might have a different name, but yeah, one of them was Thule. But I find all that extremely interesting, but I can't find it. Like, it's all gone off YouTube. Like, I can't search it. It doesn't come up in the search history, and for that not to come up, like, yeah, it's I don't know whether that's just like a backlash of them trying not to what would you say, trying to remove conspiracy theories, because like it's kind of connected to all that. But like, that's documented history. You know, like it may be connected to conspiracy theory, but you know that actually happened, and I think I don't think it's a good thing to remove that stuff, because like that was how crazy it was. You know, that was why we say, you know, like part of the reason why we say Hitler was such a nutball, because of all that occultish stuff. We need to, you know, look at that not positively, but you know, review that and go like, well, what happened here? What led to this sort of, what led to people going so radical? Um, but anyway, yeah. So the internet in Australia has become extremely censored. You know, much mirroring China. I think it's probably not nearly as bad, but you know, they're introducing the laws that could lead to that. There was a comedian here who called Friendly Geordies, like his YouTube channel is Jordan Shanks, and he just went through a court case. The New South Wales Deputy Premier tried actually taking him to court and getting them to remove all his content because they claimed it to be racist and for him to make racist attacks. And like all this dude really did was put like, because the deputy premier was of Italian descent, so he put his face on a Mario cartoon, you know, and called him Bruz. And but the thing was, this Jordan Shanks is of Italian descent himself, so like, you know, he's only making fun of his own, like, you know, his own people. Yeah, I think that's allowed, you know. You know, you can't freak out at slander all the time, like, you know, especially when it's, you know, like just a comedian making a joke, you know, like a meme. You can't get angry at memes. It's such an overreaction. It's hilarious. But the thing was, this Jordan Shanks character actually uncovered a fair, like a, you know, an amount of corruption looking into this guy, because he's also sort of a journalist, and you know, he brought this corruption to light. And as soon as that happened, you know, the deputy premier has shit his britches and tried to remove all the content, you know. But as it would so happen, the New South Wales Premier and the Deputy Premier only last week, I think, resigned out of nowhere. The Premier was being investigated over some, like, apparently she had an affair, and like I wasn't a fan of Gladys Berejiklian, the Premier, sorry, of New South Wales, but to have to resign over your own personal sexual exploits, in cabinet or not, I think is fairly ridiculous. It could have been the case that this, like, I haven't actually looked into it at all. I just know it happened. Like, so maybe the person she slept with was in another party, and it could have been, you know, like trying to swing votes or something. But in a sense, like, politicians are meant to talk to each other. You know, like, is that, like, just because it didn't happen in actual session, swinging votes, like, that's what they're meant to do. I don't think it's right to pay it off. Like, you don't want corruption, but, you know, the government has to work together to a certain extent. Like, we sort of have this too, we've got into this sort of mentality where if you see people from different parties sort of collaborating, we think it's wrong. But like, that's exactly what happened. Like, that's exactly what we should have. You know, the whole point of the government is to sort of come to some type of, you know, resolution. You know, what's best for everyone. You know, and they have different points of views, but that's exactly the point, because it's meant to emulate a reality in a sense. You know, so the choices that they make work for the rest of us, because it's kind of the same vibe, sort of thing. Anyway, so yeah, internet is Fuck. Got a little bit off track there. But, yeah. So, let's get in and have a look at these news headlines. Go on the ABC one first, seeing as they're technically meant to be, you know, independent, even though they're funded by the government, so makes it hard. Alright, this website is confusing as hell. There is about, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little headlines in a thing on the right. We got features, 2 features with a picture and a headline next to that, and then we got another 2, like those 2 I just mentioned were in vertical, and then we got horizontal 2, like whole, like big ones. Let's read these out. Alright, let's have a look here. As a baby, Noah was operated on without his consent. He feels he should have been left how he was born. Oh my fucking god. See this shit? Oh man. What the fuck? Okay, let's read into it. Don't judge it. Don't judge an article by its cover. Alright. Noah underwent surgeries to make him more typically male when he was just a baby. Now advocates are pushing to stop unnecessary procedures until intersex children are old enough to consent. Intersex children, okay. That might actually be talking about... Alright, I want to read out all the headlines here just so you can see, but let's go into this because we don't want to lose track. I'm going to click on that one. We're going to read what this is. Okay. Well, this is a big article. Alright, I'm going to skip the Noah stuff. And there's a secondary headline at the bottom here which says calls to stop unnecessary non-consensual surgeries. Right. There are around 70 different conditions that fit under the umbrella term intersex, broadly defining people born with variations of sex characteristics. There is no consensus regarding how common intersex conditions are, but it's estimated that around 1.7% of Australian babies born each year could fit the definition. In some instances, the surgeries and hormonal treatments recommended for young intersex people are urgent and medically necessary and can prevent illness such as cancer. On other occasions, the treatments, also known as sex normalization procedures, are recommended but can be deferred and sometimes done to simply make babies develop in a more typically male or female way. People in the intersex community have been campaigning against these deferrable surgeries for decades. Now, powerful institutions are taking note. What is... I don't understand what they mean by... Alright, well, let's go back to the start. We're going to go back to the start because I have no idea what they actually mean by intersex here. Like, is this some type of hermaphroditic thing? Because if they're doing it on babies, then there must be a clear sign that it's needed. Like, they can't be talking about people that decide to, you know, or feel that they have both, or like, yeah. Anyway, let's go and read it. Noah is fascinated with nature. The 11-year-old loves growing mushrooms, is obsessed with birds, and spends much of his time in the bush around his Northern Territory home. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh there, but loves growing mushrooms. Oh, this is going to turn into like a, I forget the name of it. Some drug trip movie. No wonder he's having, like, problems. Tripping balls. Anyway, and the water I love swimming, he adds thoughtfully. Noah is also intersex, a term he describes as someone born neither typically male nor female. To some people that's quite confusing, he says. Intersex is a totally biological condition. It's not caused by illness, it's not a disease, it's not how a lot of people are born. Noah's parents, Colin and Tiffany, remember the day he first came into the world. It's hard to really describe when your child's born, but it was pretty magical, Tiffany said. We had some really lovely midwives who came and delivered Noah in our house, Colin said. And just as they were leaving, they said, "Oh, and he's got this anatomical difference. Why don't you come to the hospital tomorrow and have it looked at?" And that begins the family's arduous journey in and out of hospitals for numerous medical interventions, including surgery. From a local hospital, baby Noah was transferred to a specialist clinic interstate where doctors told Colin they would make Noah as much as a boy as we can. I do remember having a conversation with one of the urologists who said, "He's a boy, he needs to be able to pee standing up," Tiffany said. Noah's parents felt pushed into making the decision about a topic they knew very little about. They eventually consented to surgeries that would make Noah's genitalia function and appear typically male. Right, okay. So this is something like that, yeah. Yeah, okay. No, well, definitely. I mean, that's a weird thing, but fucking kids don't know, you know. Um, yeah, no. I laughed, because I thought, like, yeah, but no, yeah, I apologise. No, totally, I agree with that. Why not? Anyway, let's go for the next one here. He's live. Daniel Andrews is set to update Victoria's next steps out of lockdown. Okay, well, that's probably topically fucking relevant, but as Australia enters the living with COVID phase, Netflix have a message for non-COVID states. Yeah, I'm not gonna look at that one because I'm in New South Wales. I don't feel like listening to his live address right now. So here's the features. How ABC Guerrilla TV program The Brief is offering a different take on federal politics for younger audiences. Oh, yeah, I'm not plugging a show at the moment. World record beckons for backyard gardeners tree bearing 10 different fruits. What? Okay, let's click on that. 10 different fruits. How the bloody hell are we doing that? Let's have a read through here. If you're after some stone fruit this summer, consider a trip to Kyalla in Victoria's north. See, this is something that's honestly frustrating the bloody hell out of me. Because, like, we're in oh well, New South Wales has just sort of come out of lockdown, but we can't leave the state. I'm pretty sure. Like we can't go to Queensland without having our vaccine passports and all that sort of stuff. And we keep advertising people to travel, and then telling people not to go out because of like COVID. You don't want to spread it. We're only allowing people to travel, I think, like a certain distance. I know, and people in like the city, they weren't even allowed to leave their suburb. And then you get these articles like people are. Yeah, I know it's a way people get into like typing. If you write a lot of articles, that's the sort of language you would use, but not right now. It's it's ridiculous. Like I find it so frustrating. Like I'm pretty sure they've taken the travel ads off the TV. I think, but yeah, I actually don't really watch TV. Like I just watch, like everyone, the internet. I put Disney Plus on, watch The Simpsons if I watch anything. Yeah, so I'm not really up to date with what's going on that. And to be honest, since lockdown started and ended, I haven't watched the news. This is my first time going into it because honestly, normally the news frustrates the hell out of me. Um, yeah, that's why I thought it would be a good podcast idea because you'll probably get some rants. Like I'll go on a trip. It irritates the hell out of me. All right, so yeah, that grinds my gears. Let's get back into it here. Husam Saraf propagates and sells a variety of rare fruit trees and edible plants from his back garden at the southern fringe of Greater Shepton. Among his collection is one tree that bears 10 different types of fruit. Come summer, a lucky picker could sample white nectarine, white peach, blood plum, peachcot, yellow plum, almond, yellow peach, apricot, cherry, and yellow nectarine, all from one tree. The base tree is a white nectarine, one that Mr. Sarif grew from seed a few years ago. And when you grow something from seed, it will take much, much longer to fruit. So I decided to cut it and graft 2 trees on it at the start, he explained. And then I said, okay, let's get the most out of it. And so every 6 months I grafted 1 or 2 different grafts again. Alright, I get what he's doing here. This is not Mr. Sarif's only multi-grafted tree. He has a tree that produces oranges, lemons, mandarins, and limes, and an apple tree with 6 different varieties. Right, so it's not one tree, he's grafted different trees. But that's pretty cool. That's good effort. Good on him. Why not? Alright, so yeah, that was like the first first 4 big stories in the window of the ABC website. And on the right, they've got a just in, which must keep updating. So we'll just read them real quick. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a very crowded screen. I suppose they're trying to get as many articles that can grab your eye because people are too lazy to scroll and look into shit. New COVID-19 exposure sites in region South Australia after truck driver tests positive. Another truck driver testing positive. This is the thing, we need truck drivers, but like I don't understand how this is hard. You see, I'm not an advocate for lockdown necessarily. Like, my argument is, you know, we should be doing it properly. Like, I was in WA when the coronavirus hit, and they stopped doing home deliveries for fear of, like, the truck drivers getting, like, to protect their delivery people. But that was silly. Like, you know, you've got this lockdown and everything's shut except for the supermarket and, you know, a couple of specialty places, you know, some type of food places and that sort of thing. But but this is the biggest thing that grinds my gears here, because the supermarkets never had to widen their aisles or anything. You know, we have this 2 meter rule where you're supposed to stay, like, some places had a 1.5, but, you know, it was mainly like a 2 meter rule where people aren't allowed to, you know, sort of get within 2 meters of each other. You know, you have to space it up in the lane aisles at the, I mean, at the checkouts and all this sort of thing. But, you know, in all honesty, I went to this every time I went to the supermarket. No one gave a shit. You know, everyone had their masks on, but, you know, no one was, you know, like, you still walk past each other in the aisle and people didn't fucking blink an eye, which is just absolutely fucking, I can't believe it. You know, you got these people that go on like, oh, we got to have it, you know, all these people that fucking rant and rave about how important it is, and like, you're killing people if you do this sort of, you know, if you go out and all this sort of stuff, and then they go to the supermarket and walk fucking right next to someone, probably pick up a bag of chips someone else has fucking grabbed. You know, like, there was hardly anyone there wiping, you know, checkouts and that sort of thing. And, like, this is the issue here, right? The, like, all Woolworths and that had to do, like the supermarkets, you know, I don't want to put down on Woolworths because, like, they're dying, you know, here in Australia. Their Coles is beating their ass. You know, Coles is obviously Costco, and I think Woolworths was at least, it was started as Australian, you know. But, like, that's an interest, you know, that's a good fact, because during the wars, Woolworths gave up their, like, warehouses to store and manufacture arms. You know, everything. You know, every effort went to that. And, like, this isn't obviously a war, but we're meant to be taking this as seriously. You know, if the main hard point is lives, which, you know, like the war is, you know, we're trying to save lives, then why the bloody hell, like, aren't these supermarkets having to make their places safe, like COVID safe? Well, you know, they put everything on us, but, you know, if you're a small business owner, you're not allowed, like, you had to modify your shop. Like, you had to have certain walkways people could go in. Like, you know, they had COVID inspectors go to all these places and, you know, make sure that these small businesses follow the rules, and, like, they only had 5 people in the store at a time, and, you know, stuff like that. And these big supermarkets, they've just got, you know, they haven't had to do a fucking thing. You know, and not only that, they, like, all they had to do, like, was to put on some extra staff to have people, you know, wiping trolleys, keeping stuff safe. What's an extra 10 people to them? You know, it wouldn't have hampered their, like, money, bottom line, all that much. But, like, that's all everything is, bottom line. I am pretty certain that these supermarkets made a fucking profit during COVID, during this lockdown, like one of the worst pandemics ever seen. They made a profit. That's an absolute crock of shit. Like, how the bloody hell did that happen? And with that profit, they still didn't do anything to fucking help. You know, like, what? Like, this is what frustrates most people. Like, I can understand people getting frustrated, because, like, if you actually have a look at it, god damn, it's frustrating. You know, and, like, they put everything on, and, like, the person, like, up to the individual. You know, when the first when the first person sort of broke quarantine, or, like, they found, spread the virus and broke quarantine, it was some Sheila from Melbourne. I don't know the name and I wouldn't say it, but yeah, like she went up, like flew up to somewhere in Queensland and then went back to Melbourne or something for a party, as you do. But like when this happened, they put a picture in the paper. They vilified this woman, and that to me is just absolutely disgusting. I mean, she may have made a mistake. She may have knew that she was doing the wrong thing, but fucking hell, like, and then the mob just hit her. Like the whole of Australia was just like, oh, how could you, like they had a fucking name and shit. She would have had to disappear, the poor girl, Oh. And then these are the people that'll still go to the supermarket and fucking walk right next to you. They can all get screwed as far as I'm concerned. Absolute hypocrites, every single fucking one of them. I haven't seen one, not one person fucking have I seen. You go to the shop and have a look and like see how many people are like actually fucking revert, would actually, be following that thing. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I just sort of lost my track. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the next one here. Mid-century architects' mischievous nature still surprises today. All right, that's mid-century architecture. I don't mind that. Let's see what we got. When Iwan Ivanov does Iwan Ivanov? What a name! That's IWAN for the first name and IWANOFF. Iwan Ivanov. That's awesome. Designed a house. It came with custom furniture and fit outs. It's like that's the typical superhero method. Peter Parker, Lois Lane, Clark Kent, Iwan Ivanov. He's an absolute legend. When architect Iwan Ivanov arrived in Perth in 1950 from Germany, he found a city with bright, direct lights and plants, unlike anything he had ever seen before, inspiring his distinctive design and artwork. I just call that dude like a hero, and it turns out he arrived from Germany in 1950. There could be a sketchy background there. I don't want to. Anyway, let's go. Obviously, he's all right. He must be right. My grandparents were German, but like they were in. Oh, my grandparents' parents were German, but they were in Australia before the wars. Anyway, Ivanov was born in Bulgaria and studied. Oh, I skipped a bit. But his long career designing houses and public buildings that responded to Western Australia's unique landscape happened almost by accident. Ivanov was born in Bulgaria and studied architecture and engineering in Munich during and after World War II, but found himself unable to find a job in a struggling post-war Germany. Yes, I'm sure there mustn't have been much building going on there. There were rumours of Third World War coming, and of course the Germans didn't want foreigners there. Michael Ivanov, Iwan Ivanov's son, said they were encouraged to go out, and they were going to go to America, but they were booked out. Booked out. Yeah, that's a good term for it, I suppose. Just got the no vacancy sign slung up. Anyway, And then there were ships coming to Australia. They were going to Melbourne, but Fremantle was the first port of call, and they ended up deciding, this will do, let's get off. Ivanhoe launched his career at the firm of Krantz and Sheldon, working there for a decade while he got his professional accreditation. He soon then thrived. Warren Anderson, who has written a biography on Ivanhoe, says when he arrived in Perth, he was quickly identified as being a talented architect and artist. During that time, he worked on a lot of apartment buildings, and he also was supervising their office. But he was also moonlighting when he was working there. It's not the normal practice, but because he was such a talented employee, they turned a blind eye and just let him do his own for a while. There you go. Alright, let's get on with it. What has he done? I see a picture of the house there. It looks pretty damn cool. It almost looks like when in movies when they got the cubes, and the cubes come out as like pictures. That's what this house looks like on the walls. Just a heap of cubes with like random bits jutting out. Looks really cool. Anyway, long hours pay off. Eventually, Ivanhoe was able to set up his own business, building up a thriving practice that continued until his death in 1986. He was the age 67. Working non-stop, his son recalled, he did long hours on the drafting board. My routine was to bring him a cup of coffee and rub his back, Mr. Ivanhoe said. Over time, clients came to seek out his highly distinctive style, but when he set out in his practice, he was catering to a general public whose design sensibilities had been formed by Women's Weekly and Home and Garden. Until he got the client base, and it took him about 10 years to do that, he had to basically give the clients what they wanted. This article is way too fucking long. Scrolling down here. Here we go. Only halfway down too. And I skipped, Jesus, 3 paragraphs. 2 pictures. The mischievous nature features in designs. Alright, this has got to be the kicker here. For every house he designed, he also crafted a letterbox to match, sometimes confounding neighbourhood postmen. He found the letter slots difficult to find in the small matching sculptures, Mr. Ivanhoe recalled. That mischievous nature is very typical. He was a very quiet person, very reserved, but when it came to architecture and design, he became incredibly animated. He said his father's interest... Oh my bloody God. This is an autobiography, not a fucking article. He believes in designing something... Is that it? Is that it? He was not interested in just going to block and bulldozing everything. He wanted trees to be part of it, and he wanted a garden to be part of it. Revolutionary this guy was. That looks like the Men in Black building. I just put a picture of the Men in Black building here. I don't know if these are even pictures of his fucking work. The Pagan Inn house has been restored to its original condition. Northern Public Library. Brutalist in its design. They must be his. The buildings, no doubt, look awesome. And I'm not going to read the rest of that article because, Jesus, that's way too long. Go back. Alright. Queensland records 0 COVID-19 cases as CHO warns it's becoming too late for those who weren't vaccinated. What? Too late for those not vaccinated. Fuck, this is some bullshit, isn't it? You see, my issue is, right, yeah, I should probably look into it a bit more, but when they first were talking about this vaccine, they were pretty honest about calling it a booster shot. Like, it's not a traditional vaccine. This is just like a concoction of a heap of shit that is most likely going to protect you from the virus. And I'm pretty sure from fucking, like, they think anything is like going to be like the flu shot. And like that's the problem. It's not a vaccine, you know. Vaccines, you know, you don't have to keep going and taking heaps of fucking boosters, like one every year. You know, that's not a vaccine. Vaccine like defeated polio and all that type of shit. Wiped it out. This isn't going to do that. You know, we've still had like deaths from people with double vaccinations. You know, so like they said this in the beginning. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say like this isn't a fucking definite defeater. You know, it's not definitely going to stop the virus. It's like a flu shot. It's a booster shot to your immune system. And this is my problem with them doing all this to the non-vaxxers. I mean, I personally wouldn't get vaccinated, except, you know, I need to bloody go out. I'm trying to, you know, run my own business or get my own business going. And you can't run a business without having the shots, like, because you need to work with people. So, like, you know, I went and got it. Like I said, I haven't had the second yet, but, you know, personally, I wouldn't have had the vaccine at all. Because, like I said, it's a booster shot. Not because it's not a vaccine. I mean, not because, you know, I believe, you know, it's going to do any damage, but, you know, because, yeah, it's not a definite fucking thing. And I don't think my immune system's too shit. I think it'll be right. I need a booster shot. And like, I got so sick from mine for like 2 or 3 days. I had the AstraZeneca, and I think they're saying now that they're going to recall the AstraZeneca because there's something wrong with it. I think this is the second one they've recalled. Like, this is it. Like, we produce this shit so fucking quick that, yeah, it's fucking dangerous. I nearly called an ambulance. My blood pressure was up so high, I was laying on my pillow, right, and my temple was pulsating so hard that it made the pillow fall off my head and keep tapping me like that. And I thought there was like something in the pillow, like moving. I fucking checked the pillow, and I'm like, no, and I lay back down, it's still going. It was me temples, fucking near popping out of me skull. But, yeah, got to do it. Yeah, let's see why it's too late for the unvaccinated. CHO wants 50,000 vaccinations a day. Authorities announced 72% of eligible Queenslanders have had their first dose of COVID vaccine, while 56% are fully vaccinated. Deputy Premier Stephen Miles said Queensland will stick to the national plan when it came to moving forward. As soon as we reach those 70 and 80% targets, the need for restrictions will get less, he said. Now, this is the thing here in Australia. We got, I think the plan is, yeah, once we get to 70%, you know, restrictions will drop even more for those unvaccinated, for those vaccinated, but the unvaccinated still will not have anything, you know, won't be able to cross borders or anything like that, which is a massive problem, like, because our health system's gone to shit, you know. We need to be able to cross border. Like me myself, I need to go for back surgery, and I can't go see me fucking specialist because I live on a border town and he's north, and to go south is just too costly. You know. Anyway, let's continue here. I guess the difference is we're not in lockdown here, whereas in New South Wales they have had the motivation of lifting the lockdown to get vaccinated. We're not currently in lockdown. See, like right fucking there, he's stating, you know, how important it is New South Wales had the motivation to fucking get out of lockdown to get vaccinated. Like, I really think this is more of a money thing than anything. And, like, I think it's necessary. You know, I think, you know, especially our country's tiny. We make fuck all money. But, like, America and everything, you know, we desperately need to become more economically fucking stable. Because I don't think the plan's working at the moment. We've had that many collapses and shit. Yeah. Yes. I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than is to be seen, you know. Anyway, let's go on from that. So the motivation, the incentive is to avoid lockdown, and of course, when we reach suitable thresholds, we'll also be able to lift the other restrictions. He said the government could not set a target for reopening borders. There's a massive, big, bold statement here that just reads, one sentence that just reads, "We've really got to regain our full lives again," which would be great. And the article continues, "Because we don't know when we'll hit those targets," he said, we absolutely need Queensland to go out and get vaccinated. We're not yet at 80% first dose, and so that makes it very hard to predict when we'll get to the 80% second dose. I'm just going down a bit. No, this article's not too long. Right. Lifting the state's vaccination rate remains the main goal for the Chief Health. So if you haven't had your first dose, it's really becoming too late for you, she said. You need to come forward now and get the first dose of vaccine because it takes 5 to 6 weeks before you get full immunity. And we don't know what will happen in the next 5 to 6 weeks. She said she would like to see more than 50,000 vaccinations a day. We're in the home stretch. We're generally in the home stretch, she said. Right, kind of contradicting the last thing. Now, this is the thing. Like, I know they're structuring their speeches. You know, you've got a speechwriter, obviously. But it's so frustrating when they go from, like, one doom and gloom sort of, you know, you haven't got your first dose, it's too late, we can't predict how long it's going to take to get to the 80% if, you know, we haven't got 80% of the first dose. And then they go, we're in the home stretch. You know, it's all good. Like, fucking, yeah, sweet. It's frustrating as hell. You know, just one line and another. Say something people want to hear and then, you know, tell us we're all fucked. It's mad. Anyway, I just can't see that we can keep the virus out for much longer. See? What the fuck is that? Next fucking line. Next fucking line is the opposite again. Yep. Next line, right? We should have this as a fucking drinking game. Morning drinking game. We should do that, right? Every time they contradict themselves in one argument, one article. I only get paid every now and again, but we'll do that. That's a good idea. Write that down. Anyway, yep, next line. We've done so well, but it's time for a normalize. We've done so well, but we can't keep the virus out. Don't forget that. We're all fucked, but we've done so well. All right, let's see. Like, we've had a good one. What's the next one? Every time someone has a bit of a headache or a sniffle, I'm saying come and get tested. We've really got to move on from there. That makes it move on from where? What the fuck does that mean? What am I going to do when it makes no sense? Do I take a shot? Do I pour one out? For all the fucking people that built these countries? That's a good idea. Someone's got to think of them buggers. Alright, next one here. We've really got to regain our full lives again, and we can only do that if we're vaccinated. But it's not. But you don't have to get vaccinated. Remember that. It's not fucking legally obligated. But oh, so cool. We wouldn't normally be vaccinating. Oh wait, what? Where are we going? She said this is why the government was trying to encourage people by putting up a number of pop-up clinics in very unusual places. We wouldn't normally be vaccinating people at Bunnings, she said. And that's the end of the article. The fuck was that? Honestly think, like that's written that way. Like the end is just a heap of fucking quotes. And just ends. Because, like, I'm sure that writer is trying to illustrate the hypocrisy in what they're saying. I mean, you can't have such a mishmash article like that without doing it on purpose. Oh, my word. Good on them. That's fucking awesome. Praise to. Oh, let's see who wrote that. Actually, I'm going to go back in. Let's see who wrote that. Where is it? Where does it say? I'm going to give you a Lord's round of applause for that article. 58 minutes ago. Updated 18 minutes ago. Okay, where's the writer of the article? Oh, sorry that I move around heaps. It's just the back killing me. It hurts to sit down. I don't know the writer of the article. It's probably in some really small font somewhere. Surely. They have the writer. Oh, wait. Down at the Speaking Code press conference, ABC News, Scott Kyle. Okay, I think it may be Scott Kyle, unless that's who. There's a picture of the health chick that said she wanted 50,000 vaccines a day. But, yeah. And she's just sort of standing there. So I don't know if the Scott Kyle is like the reporter doing that interview. Oh, it must be, yeah. So this is just an interview. So, holy fuck. So, like, if that's surely they've cut that up to look like that. They can't be like an actual transcript of the interview without the bloody interviewer's questions. Anyway, so I think Scott Kyle. Round of applause, Scott Kyle. Alright, now we get on to, like, you scroll down, and then, bang, you got like a real terrible story chucked in there. I don't think we'll start with that one. Let's go to the horizontal one. We've got a real horrible vertical one, and then Kyle and Danny are the same person. The great social media misinformation quiz. What? Oh my god. Some bullshit about a quiz that I bet is just, I'm not even giving that the time of day. Okay. Alright, the horizontal here. As Australia enters the living with COVID phase, these experts have a message for the non-COVID states. Alright. Non-COVID states, eh? As Australia need to focus on... The experts say the population needs to focus on hospitalizations, not case numbers. Oh! Oh! Oh my god! No shit, Sherlock. Fucking experts. Fucking expert. God bless them. Oh well. Right. The divide could not be starker. As New South Wales opened up to the world, on the other side of the country in the COVID-free state of WA, the population got its first early glimpse into what living with COVID could mean. When its hard border is lifted, see, like WA here, they've, since the vaccine started, they've pretty much constantly had a hard border where they allowed no one from any other state in. Which, like, I was there, but then, like, it lifted for a couple of months, like, for a little while, because we thought we were sort of in the clear. And then COVID reared its head again. We had the new Delta strain. And W went hard lockdown again. Like, I left W in that sort of middle bit, grace period. I'm in New South Wales now, but like my ex-partner and my kids are in WA. My son turned like 11 this year, and like I was finally had permission to bring the kids back over here to New South Wales for Christmas, so they could finally, like, they've been in WA their whole lives, basically. And yeah, we're in this fucking lockdown. I can't even bring the kids over from WA. Like, they have a fucking hard, like a hard border. They won't let anyone in or out type thing. But yeah, so they're talking about when it's going to be lifted. And in Victoria, case numbers pushed past 2,000 in multiple days as the state prepared for eventual gradual reopening later this month. While the south of Tasmania entered a 3-day lockdown after a hotel quarantine breach. Australia is in the midst of a state-by-state pandemic. But at some point, the nation will come back together to go through the living with COVID phase 1. So, like, there's no escape from this. It's yeah, you know, it's going to be forever. It's terrible COVID. Experts say that for the non-COVID states, the transition will likely be problematic as populations with little or no COVID experience grapple with the virus and its impacts on the hospital system. And like another thing, I know a lot of, like, my mum's training to be a nurse, all my cousins are nurses, my godmother's like the head nurse here at Duffield. Had lots of contact with nurses and other such medical people, and yeah, the medical systems are pretty well screwed. Like, we've had cut after cut for fucking years, and like now, like, all hospitals are understaffed. Like here in Duffield, we might not even have a doctor. You know, yeah, it's not a good state of affairs, and like that's just another indication of like what we're going to have to do, like why we need so much money, because we're already losing, and we're going to have to generate capital just to even, like, for them to uncut all the cuts they've made to healthcare. Like, yeah, this is going to get pretty bad. Anyway, yet according to Deakin University Chair of Epidemiology Catherine Bennett, there is one key message for the Australian population as it moves into this phase. There is one key message for the Australian population as it moves into this phase. Sorry, that sentence made no sense the way I read it. Don't be scared about exposure, Professor Bennett said. Fucking, you see this shit? They're just, like, they've got to change the narrative now. You know, this is hyped up so fucking much, people are fucking terrified. You know, they're afraid to leave their house. You know, unless they're going to the shops, then they don't give a shit. But, you know, they will talk about how, you know, fucking scared they are. They're like, now we've got, like, don't be scared about exposure. Like, you know, it's all good. You know, actually, like, you know, they'll say it's because of the vaccine, but back off. Yeah. You know, COVID probably will make its way across the country, but not quickly and not immediately, with everyone suddenly being exposed and a whole lot of people being infected. That's why it's critical to keep public health measures in place and not just say, okay, it's all over. We want to keep it down and manageable. If we keep our vaccination levels high, like we've seen in New South Wales, with 92% of adults receiving the first dose, there are some of the highest vaccination rates in the world. We know how to control COVID, and we've protected ourselves from the worst of it through those vaccines and treatments. Yeah, like listen to that. We're sweet, according to this person, but the last person, you know, and it's still deadly. Fucking look out! Don't forget that. Very important. But we know how to control it. Calm down. Calm down. As New South Wales became the first state or territory to enter the living with COVID phase last week, discussion centred on how many Australians will end up contracting COVID. The predicted numbers vary widely, with Doherty Institute modelling released to the government in July showing a range of scenarios. According to University of Melbourne epidemiologist and public health expert Tony Blakely, no one really knows. Oh, mad. Over the next year or two, there's so many uncertainties, Professor Blakely said. It could be as low as 3 to 4% of Australian population becoming infected over that period. Or it could be as high as 10 to 20. Professor Blakely and a team at the University of Melbourne conducted simulation models on the likely scenarios for 2022 with a loose suppression model, which he said was a more likely scenario for Australia, resulting in about 2,000 cases per day for states, with populations the size of New South Wales and Victoria. But, he said, it was a fact a large proportion of Australians would be exposed to the virus, and the number of people infected would depend on how the population functioned. We shouldn't be fatalistic about it, he said. Say next year and the year after, the virus doesn't severely mutate and we have boosters, not vaccines, boosters to the vaccine, and things like that. We could possibly keep the infection rate quite low. And it depends if we are prepared to keep those public health measures in place, or to go into lockdowns. If things get out of control and our health service gets overloaded. But the key point here is in the first year after opening up, not everyone is going to be exposed, because if everyone was exposed, our health services would be overwhelmed. Right. So I'm guessing this is going to be like, just because we're opening up doesn't mean you can go anywhere. We must control the spread. Professor Bennett said the measure today, even in Victoria, was very different to what was measured 2 months ago. She said at the start of the current Delta outbreak, there was a very comprehensive follow-up list of exposure sites and mass testing. It's a different story now, she said. As vaccination levels increase, we should be concentrating on the hospitalizations. They are what we call a harder endpoint. They're more reliable. Those cases are telling us a story about how we're managing. Melbourne-based health economist Angela Jackson agreed. Marvellous. Marvellous. Absolutely marvellous. It has shifted. The case numbers aren't as important, Miss Jackson said. So you've heard it here first, folks. The case numbers now don't matter. So we're sweet. Next time you hear them talk about case numbers, tell them to screw themselves. Right? Let's make that another drinking game. Every time they talk about case numbers ever again, I'll have a shot. And I'll be fucking dead next week. On Friday, the Australian Medical Association released new analysis giving the incident to how much the health sector is struggling and the potential toll of opening up. It found some public hospitals were already running at 100% capacity and would be tipped over the edge by an influx of demand from COVID-19 cases. No fucking shit. Like I said, the hospitals are fucked. They operate at 100% when someone comes into the office, because even though the office is fucking empty, it'll still take you an hour and a half because the doctor's not there. Miss Jackson said the pressure on the hospital system would likely be difficult to manage, particularly for the non-COVID states. Yep, bullfuck. They haven't got anyone. Now is they haven't got any COVID cases. So now is the time to boost that fucking shit in preparation, people. It's going to be more difficult. How's it going to be more difficult? Because they haven't borne the brunt of it yet? Fucking. So that means it's be the same. You just have to wait till the fucking time is. Like, oh, damn. Anyway, let's go on. It caused issues for their health systems, and it'll take leaderships in those. Oh, wait, I've skipped a bit again. We've seen in Singapore, for example, which has had relatively low COVID numbers, the people there have inundated emergency wards with COVID-19 symptoms. Many people who were vaccinated and weren't severe. Oh, would you look at that? It's a wonder people who weren't severe and vaccinated still flooded the hospital because everyone's fucking shit scared. Yeah. And like with COVID symptoms, like let's remember the main COVID symptoms. Sneezing, sniffling, flu-like symptoms, headache. You get nearly one of them every day. Anyway, it caused issues for the health system, and it'll take leadership in those Australian states to say, look, it's okay. If you're vaccinated and get COVID, you'll likely be okay. It's going to become part of life. Marvellous. And that's the end. So they didn't talk about Perth, really, or any of their plans. They just said it's most likely going to affect them because they're going to have increased cases of people freaking the fuck out over nothing. I really like actually the way these articles are written, because I think it's really trying to illustrate the point. And I don't want to draw attention to that because, you know, they could get in trouble. But I have to give another clap. By the specialist reporting teams, Nick Sass. Good work. Good work. Alright. I think that's far enough into the air. Oh no, let's look at the heartbreaking shit. We got to have a look at this heartbreaking shit because fucking it's important. Like one really important article here, so we're going to click on it and give it its due. Right. Despite promises, Taliban beginning evicting Afghanistan's ethnic Hazars from their land. See, all right. I'm not talking about this article at all. I just want to talk about how these headlines are structured, which is fucking annoying as hell. Because like they've got the headline outside, right? The link to click on, and it says thousands of families in Afghanistan evicted from their homes after the Taliban broke a key promise. And then the headline, when you click into it, is despite promises, Taliban beginning evicting Afghanistan's ethnic Hazars from their land. So like it's a continue on from the last thing, which is just frustrating. There's a thing to watch here for 14 seconds, and it looks like people walking. I don't know if, like, I'm recording on the computer mic at the moment, even though I have another one, but yeah, I just wanted to test this out today, but I don't know if you will be able to hear what the computer noise makes. I'm going to check it out. I'll play one YouTube article and give it a test. I'll watch back the footage and see if it comes through. Because yeah, that's kind of why I'm using that speaker at the moment, that mic, because I think I might pick the sound up better if I watch videos. But anyway, so we're going to leave the ABC. They've got another couple of headlines here. No new cases as southern Tasmania passes halfway point of snap lockdown. Freedom pub shut down by police over defiance of COVID rules. That's a shame. And then there's another big one in the horizontal. A double murder sent US police looking for the Mardal family's enemies. Instead, they found more crimes. Well, you wouldn't tell me that had happened in America. We apparently had tornadoes, and we've had like a big run of storms. Like, is our weather getting wilder? But we used to get like I used to live in Bundaberg, where they make Bundaberg rum. And I remember as a kid, we had a tornado come through. Only a small one, but it ripped off some stuff, some roofs and whatnot. All right, let's go to YouTube. We'll watch one of their news things, because when you go to YouTube here, our feed shows like obviously you get a couple of suggestions of your favorite channels that you subscribe to, like 4, and then another row of 4, and then you go down and you just got breaking news coming up. We've got one here that's an hour long, which I'm not going to watch, but it's in full. Further restrictions to ease. Then we got 2 minute 51 here. Perotet took a firm, decisive action on Friday. Perotet is the new New South Wales Premier after the resignation of the old one. And I don't know, he might do alright. He's considered to be fairly conservative, I think. But like, it's funny, he's Catholic, and a lot of people were giving him shit because like he's openly a religious sort of person, and they're like, oh, is that going to affect, like, should he be the leader because, he believes in something? It's like, fucking calm down. I mean, if you look at yourself, like, if you all believe in something, and, like, the most common thing to believe when you disapprove anything else is nothing, and, that's almost just as ridiculous. So, yeah. Anyway. I don't know if we want to watch the decisive action. We might check it out. Next week, there's a Queensland grabbing a jab and a snag while others protest. I'm so glad we're still protesting. Like, awesome. Yeah, someone has to say something. And, like, that's one of my favourite rights that we have. Whether they're right or not. Because, like, the thing is, like, none of us, like you hear people say, you're not a doctor, you don't know fucking shit. And it's like, well, yeah, that's exactly the thing. But, like, they don't exactly put forward information either, anything other than, excessive fear-mongering. Yeah. I don't believe, it's like calling it a vaccine and then, having booster shots and shit. Like, and having to, say now, the case numbers don't matter. It's, what's important now is, how many hospitalised and how many dead. And, like, that was only in service of how much fucking strain it's going to put on the fucking hospital system. Not any human aspect thrown into that. Just, yeah. A total reversal on most of the shit they've been going on about. And, yeah. Sweet as. Anyway. Whole people are fucking celebrating because of the 80% vaccination rate. All the double vaccinated put all these videos up just to rub in the faces of the unvaccinated. Look how good it is. Like, you know, it's a tactic. I mean, they've already used it as a description as a tactic to incentivize, which I guess they should do. And like, let's just call it what it is. And I don't think that time should be wasted on the news. You know, I don't want to watch fucking ads for your vaccine. I want you to tell me the fucking information about it. Tell me what's in it. You know, let's do some deep dives, and like fucking let's the news actually be fucking something worthwhile instead of a fucking just a propaganda machine. Whinging and bitching.
He has. Dominic
All right,
Perrottet, the New
here we
South
go.
Wales Premier,
Perrottet.
rather than the Prime Minister announcing on Friday that Australia's international border was open from November 1, he was soon reined in, with the PM saying hours later that Border Force would only be allowing vaccinated Australians in and out without quarantine, not international vaccinated tourists or students. It is my understanding Perrottet had discussed several times with the PM the prospect of having no quarantine as opposed to 7 days home quarantine for international arrivals, but had not committed to this. And his office informed the PM's office on Friday of the looming announcement. Then a phone conversation took place between Morrison and Perrottet, where Morrison asked what Perrottet was planning to do about those who came from countries without as secure vaccine records as Australia. Had it been a free-for-all, Health Minister Greg Hunt would have had to make an emergency declaration and decide what sort of penalties people who falsely claimed they had been vaccinated would have faced. There also would have had to be more clarity about vaccinations not approved by Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration, so it was just easier for the PM to restrict the travel to vaccinated Australians and their immediate families. From Perrottet's point of view, he was taking firm, decisive action. He had often privately criticised Gladys Berejiklian for not taking, and his view was the hotel quarantine experience showed overseas arrivals had less coronavirus than the percentage of people in the Sydney community at present. Anyway, it made for some spectacle, seeing the New South Wales government saying tourists could come back, and the PM forced to announce 4 hours later it would be a bit more restricted than that.
From 1 November, those people, returning Australians, tourists who want to come back, who want to visit Australia, who want to come into Sydney, hotel quarantine will be a thing of the past.
It's for the Commonwealth Government, the federal government, to decide when the border opens and shuts at an international level, and we will do that. In the first instance, it will be for Australians, Australian residents and their families. The federal government is not opening it up to anything other than Australian citizens and residents and their immediate families.
Now, this has created a very interesting dynamic and could assist the PM to force other states to adopt the national plan for reopening. Picture a citizen from Brisbane or Perth or Adelaide or Hobart who travels to Sydney to travel internationally to see loved ones. Are those premiers going to stop their residents coming back in after that international visit? The West Australian had 82% supporting Mark McGowan's hard border stance in a poll yesterday, so I guess it requires that level of public support for zero COVID in those states to change first. A testing few months ahead for the Federation, Kieran.
All right. Well, so we hopefully you could hear that. That was obviously about New South Wales opening their borders to tourists. And I didn't know, actually, like, because I don't watch. I'd heard about that, but I don't watch the news, so I didn't know Scott Morrison reversed that. But good on him, you know. But did you hear the bullshit the dude said? The percentage of people arriving from overseas with COVID are less than the percentage of people in the city. And it's like, no fucking shit. Like, what sort of argument is that? And I mean, like, the thing with New South Wales is the code, like, we were in lockdown and then we had a cruise ship come in, and like that let the virus back in. Like, we'd got rid of it, and you know, and like exactly the same things happened again with old mate opening, like the planes apparently, like they were only must have been open for a couple of days or something. I'm not 100% sure, but I think people came in with COVID, and it's like the whole point is, well, the whole point was to get rid of the virus. Like lockdown was meant to beat it. Not now, obviously, as we read earlier. This is just a part of life now. I'm gonna have to put up with it. Anyway, I was only going to watch one YouTube video so I could like test it out, because it's going to be shit if you can't hear it. But there's another video here that's from Sky News Australia, and it's titled "Biden Family Scandals Illustrate Why Trust in Media ... And like, I just got to watch this because fucking Sky News.
Okay, Kosha Garda is an American businesswoman, managing director at Recastled. She's an expert on this stuff in America, and she joins me now. Kosha, thank you so much for your time. The Biden family business, like the Biden administration, I've got to say, seems to be in shambles. How much more is going to unravel in this sad tale?
It is the one-year anniversary of what I think President Trump had termed the laptop from hell. So I think it was exactly a year ago, October 2020, where the New York Post broke that story, covered it quite extensively, and then as you mentioned,
great! It's a recap of what happened a year ago.
Fellow traditional media outlets to big tech sort of arrayed against them. And I think the revelations from this week don't really add anything fundamentally to the story. It's expanding the public's understanding.
So nothing's been added
what's going on here.
fundamentally to this story that they're recapping from a year ago.
But I think the fundamentals are the two takeaways.
But we just got to remind everyone about this shit. It's fucking important.
The institution of media and journalism is at an all-time low, certainly in the U.S. and elsewhere. And this sort of illustrates that or refreshes our memory for why that is. And then the second thing is trust in public institutions more broadly, and this idea of corruption in politics, which is as old as politics itself. The Bidens are certainly not the first people to be embroiled in this. They won't be the last. But it does raise a question about what, if anything, we should be demanding of our elected representatives, and what guardrails we should have in place to safeguard against the actual corruption or the perception of corruption, which is also very corrosive to society. Much was made of this in the previous administration, since Trump was the first outsider, billionaire businessman with a lot of business interest to win the presidency. There was a lot of discussion about emoluments clauses, and should he liquidate his businesses, should he put them in a blind trust, etc. And I think this just further raises that about what guardrails we should have in place for corruption. Both some are certainly more on the nose than others, but the system, increasingly people are thinking the system is not working fairly for the people.
Yeah, Kosha, I think that's a reasonable conclusion, but let's think about it like this. In America, they have term limits for presidents, and I suspect they have that for a very good reason. You might be able to explain precisely why. But then you have professional politicians like Joe Biden, who's always been on a very average salary, who's been there for 50-odd years. He's now a very, very wealthy man, and you certainly don't get wealth like that through saving 10% of your salary every year. And
Fuck up, cunt. Jesus. Excuse, I shouldn't use that word, especially. Like, I am going to have swearing on this, depending on where it's put up, if there's a problem. I'll probably bleep it out, but this is the first one. You get me raw.
Well, as presidents?
Yeah, this is an age-old debate. The term limits for the presidents, I think the founders, it was viewed as one safeguard against sort of this perpetual quest for power, basically, and when they were framing the Constitution, and the counter-argument for that, for why the legislative branch and the judicial branch did not have term limits, was because they thought that it takes away, if you're constantly campaigning because you're up for election all the time and you have that term limit, then it maybe takes away from what you can do in terms of the fundamental issues that you're questioning. But yeah, there's a debate around this all the time. There are instances of it. So in Texas, for instance, it's not term limits, but they have part-time at the state legislature level. So not the United States Senate, but the state level, they have part-time aspects to it, and they do have some term limits at the local level, and that debate is ongoing. I think the other issue too, Corinne, what you're raising with Pelosi and others, Biden and others, is
there's
also this idea of legalized corruption, where maybe people aren't explicitly breaking laws that are on the books, but there's this revolving door of people who formerly held public office or their associates having the red carpet rolled out for them in terms of corporate board seats, media contracts, jobs at white shoe firms as lobbyists, donations to their philanthropic ventures, or in Hunter Biden's case this past week, his newfound interest as an artist,
Anyway,
and people
whatever.
selling
That's
and
just
buying.
typical Sky News, just absolute bullshit. Fucking hell. Anyway, I think we might leave it there. We're at an hour and a half, probably a decent time for this first one. Not sure how I'm going to upload this. Like, I may try and edit some things in, but at the moment I'm just recording to the camera. So yeah, thank you for joining me for the first episode of A Morning with the Lord. I've been your Lord, Daniel Duffield, and until next time, you lords and ladies out there, stay safe.